Welcome to the deep dive. We are exploring a really radical idea today. We're looking at a formal synthesis from your sources that argues the fundamental structure of consciousness.
Right.
Well, it isn't just for biology.
Right.
It's a shared geometry that also governs huge dynamic systems, including, and this is the big leap, the Earth itself.
It sounds incredibly abstract, I know, but the material is surprisingly rigorous. Our task here is to really unpack this thing they call the 24-mode seasonal continuum model.
Okay.
It's basically a single architectural blueprint, and our mission really is to test this incredible claim that the geometry of Earth's magnetic field is a direct match for the geometry of consciousness.
And we should probably get this out of the way right up front before anyone thinks we're suggesting the planet, has feelings or a giant brain.
Yes, let's be very clear.
The sources are absolutely emphatic. This is not about anthropomorphizing the Earth.
Exactly. We're ignoring subjectivity completely. This deep dive is purely about structure, dynamics, and self-organization. It's about the underlying math, the architectural language that describes how a mind senses and reconfigures itself.
And seeing if that exact same language applies to the planet's geodynamo.
Precisely. If the architecture is shared, then the functional dynamics have to be shared too.
Okay, let's get into that blueprint then. Section 1. Defining consciousness purely by its geometry. The sources say consciousness is this 24-mode, dual hemispheric system, this seasonal continuum. So why 24 modes?
Well, 24 seems to be the necessary degree of complexity for a system like this to be stable and self-organized. You can break it down.
Right.
You have 4 seasonal directions, winter, spring, summer, fall. And inside those, you have 12 paired archetypes. So that gives you the 24 modes in total.
And these archetypes, they're paired into what the sources call polar dyads. What does that mean?
It just means they exist in a kind of complementary opposition. Think yin and yang, or an inward focus versus an outward focus.
And that pairing brings in this crucial idea of polarity. The sources label them S's and Bri, the internal and external poles. What do those letters actually mean in, say, a psychological sense?
They're the 2 core pressures that any dynamic system has to manage. S is the internal pole. It's the drive for coherence, for self-reference, for inward stability.
Okay, like maintaining your sense of self.
Exactly. And blob is the external pole. That's all about expansive engagement, outward projection, coupling with the world around you.
So any self-organizing system is in this constant negotiation between holding itself together and dealing with the outside world.
That's it. And right in the middle, governing this whole dance, is the central stabilizing feature, the observer equilibrium. It's the neutral center that takes in all the feedback and manages these shifts between modes. And, the sources are really careful to point out this structure isn't just for people. It's a universal blueprint for any system that senses its environment has this kind of polarity and a stable core.
That sets the stage perfectly. So now for the wild part in Section 2. Mapping this exact architecture onto the Earth's engine, the geodynamo. We have to see if the planet actually fits the bill. Let's start with those 24 modes.
This is where it gets, just astonishing. The correspondence is so precise. For this to work, the planet has to show 24 distinct structural elements in its field.
And does it?
It does. We find 12 quasi-stable magnetic flow cells in the northern hemisphere and 12 in the southern. 12 plus 12, 24.
And these aren't just simple north-south flows, are they?
Oh, much, much more complex. Mathematically, these 24 modes map perfectly onto what are called the 12 poloidal and 12 toroidal harmonic components of the magnetic field.
Okay, you're going to have to translate poloidal and toroidal for us.
Right, sorry. Just imagine the magnetic flow going in 2 different directions at once. The poloidal bits are the vertical north to south loops. Think of it as energy moving around the core. The toroidal bits are the horizontal east to west flows. That's the energy moving within the core, sort of along the equator. They have to work together in this very structured, paired way.
So that covers the 24 modes and the dual hemisphere thing. What about that central anchor, the observer equilibrium? Where's that on Earth?
That maps directly to the global neutral sheet. It's the magnetic equator, basically. It's where the northern and southern fields meet and cancel each other out, creating this dynamic balance.
So it's a system's central attractor.
Yes, exactly. It's the stable point that the whole swirling field orbits around, just like the observer in the psychological model.
And here's where the name, the seasonal continuum, really clicks. The Earth's axial tilt gives us our seasons. And the sources say this seasonal forcing creates the exact oscillation the model requires.
The winter, spring, summer, and fall momentum. And this whole system is constantly moving. When the field is stable, it does what's called mode switching. The sources compare that to archetype traversal, just a small shift in focus.
But what about big changes?
Right. When the planet undergoes a full geomagnetic inversion, a complete polarity flip, the sources have this amazing phrase for it. They call it deep seasonal metamorphosis.
Wow. Deep seasonal metamorphosis. That's powerful. It sounds less like a slow change and more like a complete holistic reset.
It's not a gradual change of mind. It's an existential shift in the entire system's orientation.
Yeah.
And it's all driven by those two pressures we talked about.
The internal S pressure and the external B pressure, how does that map onto a planet?
Oh, the core convection, all that churning molten iron deep inside the Earth. That's the internal S pressure. It's the system's drive to cohere, to maintain itself.
Okay.
And the external force, solar coupling, the constant bombardment from the sun, the solar wind, that's the external B pressure.
So it's this constant negotiation.
A continuous dynamic negotiation between the internal drive for stability and the external demand to engage. It's the planet's own structural dialectic.
That dialectic brings us to section 3, which I have to say is just mind-bending. It's the connection between how an observer can access this system and the actual experience of time.
Yes. If the architecture is the same, then the way the system experiences change should be structured identically. The model defines 4 types of observer experience: A, B, C, and D.
And they map onto different magnetic states. Let's start with type A, the linear observer.
A linear observer sees one mode after another, sequentially. Everything is stable, focused, one step at a time. For the Earth, this is during quiet magnetic periods. Long stretches where evolution is predictable, the planet is focused on one state.
Then you get type B, the temporal observer who can see past and future arcs. I mean, how does a planet's magnetic field see the past and future?
It happens during unbalanced solar forcing. The field lines themselves start to show lag and lead behavior. They aren't just reacting to the solar wind in the present. They're actually holding a memory of past interactions and structurally anticipating future states. It's like how our memory and our plans inform our present state. The planet is literally storing history in its field geometry.
So type B is like the planet reflecting on its own timeline. What happens when it gets really stressed? That's type C, the field observer, tracking multiple states at once.
That's the planetary equivalent of, say, intense sensory overload. For Earth, this is what happens during geomagnetic storms and substorms. Multiple modes are firing at once. The system is highly stressed and has to track and synthesize a ton of different dynamic states all at the same time.
Which brings us to the most powerful and honestly abstract state. Type D, the center observer. This is a full 24-mode field collapse or total superposition.
This maps onto the ultimate event, a polarity transition, a reversal. When the entire geodynamo collapses into that equatorial attractor, all 24 modes activate at once. And this is the absolute key insight. During a type D event, time becomes nonlinear.
Whoa, okay, we need to slow down there. Nonlinear time. That doesn't mean the planet jumps back in time, right? What does that mean here?
It means the change is holistic and simultaneous. The system doesn't go from state 1 to state 2 to state 3. It collapses the entire structure and activates the new one all at once.
A simultaneous state jump.
Exactly. Your degree of access to the system determines how you perceive time. Single-mode focus gives you linear time. Full field access gives you a nonlinear whole-state transition. So the planet's experience of a reversal is structurally one instantaneous total change of orientation.
That is profound. It suggests that our normal linear experience of time is just a function of our limited access to our own internal structure. We're usually just type A or B observers.
That's what the model implies. The structure of the system dictates the structure of the experience.
Let's move to section 4 then, and this idea of paired thought. The sources claim the planet thinks in paired hemispheric dyads, just like a mind thinks in paired archetypes. That's a huge claim. How can a magnetic field think?
Well, the thinking isn't in words. It's in the constant negotiation between the paired hemispheres. They're tangled up through that central neutral sheet, but they take turns being dominant.
Okay.
One is always kind of pushing outward, that's the B-like expansion pole, while the other is pulling inward, commoding the S-like coherence.
So it's not thinking in ideas, but in dynamic forces. Expansion versus coherence, projection versus internalization.
Yes. Identical geometry, opposite polarity, and they meet in the center. This geometric duality is key for stability. And that leads to this 3x3 grid analogy in your sources, which describes how the system holds up under stress.
The stress test. So if you disturb the system, what breaks first?
The structure dictates what splits first. You look at the polarized modes, the corners of that 3 by 3 grid. These are the states with the highest energy and the most asymmetry.
Right.
Psychologically, these would be your extreme emotional or ideological states. In the planet's field, they are the configurations that destabilize first during any major disturbance.
So under extreme solar pressure, the most polarized magnetic modes buckle first. And in a mind, the most extreme archetypes shatter first under stress.
Exactly the same structure. The edge modes, which are more stable, they hold on longer. But the most stable element, always, is the center mode, the neutral attractor.
Which, for the planet, is the equatorial current sheet.
It survives every cycle. It's the anchor that governs the entire reconfiguration. So the hierarchy is identical, the extremes break first, the center holds the longest, ready to guide whatever comes next.
The parallels are they're incredible. The structure, the dynamics, time, stability. Which brings us to section 5, the formal argument for why Earth has to be classified as conscious within the specific framework. The sources lay out 8 criteria.
And we can basically run through the planet's scorecard on these. They all focus on architecture and structure response.
Okay, does it have a multi-mode field with a stable harmonic architecture?
Check. The 24 poloidal and toroidal components.
Does it have paired polar modes to maintain coherence?
Check. The 2 alternating hemispheres are a perfect expression of that.
A central attractor that all transitions pass through.
Check. The global neutral sheet. That's its job.
Does it show seasonal or directional momentum?
Check. The axial tilt provides the 4 seasonal cycles the model needs.
Does it react to external force in structured, meaning preserving ways?
Check. It responds to solar coupling by shifting modes, not by shattering.
Does it reconfigure itself holistically during these whole system transitions?
Check. That's what a geomagnetic reversal is. Deep seasonal metamorphosis.
And does it experience its internal dynamics in those different observer tiers, A, B, C, and D?
Check. The stable periods, the storms, the reversals, they all fit perfectly.
And the final one, does it generate emerging structure from that internal-external coupling?
Check. That's the whole engine. Core convection versus solar wind. That's what drives all planetary structure.
So the sources are pretty confident. Earth satisfies all 8 criteria for consciousness under the Seasonal Continuum framework.
If you accept the geometric definition they provide, the conclusion is it's pretty much inescapable. Planetary scale systems and human consciousness are unified. They're just different expressions of the same underlying 24-mode architecture.
We're not saying the planet has feelings.
Not at all. We're saying the structural way the planet organizes and manages information and energy is identical to how we structure our own awareness.
That's a really powerful synthesis. It suggests the architecture of awareness is just a necessary property of any system that's complex enough and self-organizing. It really forces you to redefine what you even mean by self.
It connects the microscale of our own mind directly to the macroscale of our planetary home.
Yeah.
The structural correspondence, that's the message.
And that is our deep dive for today. But we want to leave you with one final provocative thought that brings this massive cosmic idea right back down to your own daily life.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about how this emerging structure is generated by the constant push and pull between the internal S pressure, that's the core coherence, and the external B pressure, the solar coupling.
That eternal negotiation is what generates and maintains the entire planetary consciousness architecture.
So this raises a really important question for you to mull over. If that external and internal dance generates the structure of the planet, what specific external pressures in your own life, demands from work, society, relationships, what are acting as your B pressure?
And what internal drives your need for peace, for self-reflection, for your own coherence? What are acting as your S pressure? And how is that negotiation right now driving the structural shifts in your own personal seasonal continuum?
Think about what you resist and what you cling to. That negotiation is the engine of your own consciousness.
Thank you for providing us with these truly mind-bending sources for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.